Hello, my name is Alex from Barefaced and I have a pedal problem. And this wasn't planned. A little bit of it was planned, but it seems to have escalated somewhat. It started a few years ago with me and a cheap acoustic bass guitar that I got as an experiment at home for writing on and messing about with, because it's quite a joy not to have to plug anything in, not have to think about anything. And I started writing more and more stuff on it. I don't seem to learn other people's music much nowadays, but I like to pick it up, grab it, see what comes out, and nowadays it seems to be almost a regular weekly thing. I pick it up, something interesting comes out, and then I start trying to turn it into what I would deem a sort of song foundation. And then depending on my inclination, that may get completed as an actual song, or more likely it sits in the pile of things to do once this musical project gets rolling more. And that's kind of where we're at now. So I started out thinking I was just going to put together some kind of rock band, bass guitar, drums, vocals, and not me singing, because I sang in my last band, and I discovered that I'm best kept as a backing vocalist. I can write melodies, but I just don't seem to have the sort of voice that emotionally engages with people in a musical sense, if that makes any sense. I don't know, whatever. I'm quite happy being a backing singer and being a bass player and writing stuff, or occasionally singing in choirs, but I just don't want to be a lead vocalist. It doesn't really feel like me. I like expressing myself through the bass guitar. That's where my voice is best. But I don't like being boxed in to the convention of what bass players have traditionally done, even though I'm pretty groove obsessed and like having, loads of bottom end in my sound, and will happily play the same riff over and over and over and over again and try and just get deeper and deeper into that pocket. I mean, I'm a big fan of Michael Henderson's work on The Corner, the Miles Davis album, where he just plays fat funk riffs really repetitively whilst Miles Davis and all the fusion guys go mad around him. So this project, it started sort of escalating with the pandemic getting going and me being like, right, I've got like a few years worth of riffs and bits of songs and almost completed songs, and let's try and turn this into an entity. Let's try and actually make an album out of this, maybe make it giggable. Where things seem to have honed in on now is that following a conversation with Timmy C last year when he'd listened to some bits that I'd recorded, he said, well, why do you need a guitarist? And I thought, well, that's a off-the-wall idea. It's interesting where if you're a bassist, you're used to not being noticed unless you really make an effort to be noticed, both sonically and visually on stage. Even if you sort of hang around near the front of the stage leaping on and off effects pedals, you still don't get noticed as much as guitarists do. And that's quite nice, that you can kind of blend in and then shout loud when you want to, but then not be the centre of attention, and kind of express yourself musically without feeling like you're bearing your soul to everyone, because no one's really looking at you, even though you might be. Yeah, it's a strange thing, but this idea of creating a musical project where the bass is dominating, but not in a bass album sort of way, more in I play bass and I can fill up the sonic space a guitar would normally fill up through playing bass in slightly different ways, and also using this array of stuff. And as you can see, it has escalated into quite an array of stuff. I think initially I was like, right, I'll have a machinist and I'd like a phaser, so I went on the hunt for a good phaser for bass and got this Grand Orbiter, this Earthquaker Devices Grand Orbiter. And I wanted a tremolo then, because I'd written a song and I could just kept hearing this idea of playing these chords high up on the neck of the bass and putting them through a tremolo so it sounded like a Rhodes piano. It just seemed really cool. So Earthquaker did a rather nice tremolo, so I got that. And then I wanted an envelope filter, because everyone wants an envelope filter, don't they? Yeah, they squelch. But the envelope filters are kind of odd animals, and JMJ of Nine Inch Nails and Beck and such like, and production fame, Paramore and things, he'd bought some cabs fairly recently from us, and I said, what did he recommend? Because he is a pedal guru, and he recommended the baseballs, which I've used and I'm not that big on. They're not a conventional envelope filter. They're pretty cool, but it just didn't feel like me. But he recommended this MXR bass envelope filter. I have to say, MXR make fantastic pedals, but they really should pay their marketing department. Well, they should get a naming department, because we have the MXR Reverb, the MXR Bass Chorus Deluxe. Well, they did bother to say Deluxe, so you know, and the MXR Bass Envelope Filter. Fantastic pedals, really boring names. Aren't pedals the things you get to give silly names to, like a Pog or a Machinist or a Hummingbird? Even that's a Strobo Stomp, and that's a tuner. This isn't a full drive. I know it says full drive, but it used to have a label printer sticker on it that said bass drive on it, but someone here has removed it, because it's been here in the factory for ages, and people have borrowed it for things, and my previous guitarist used it and lost the knob, so someone's replaced the knob with this delightful orange one, so I should probably do something about that. This is the pedal I've had longest. I think I got that in maybe 2000. 99, 2000, sometime around then. Didn't really get on with it that much initially, because I think I was more in a fuzzy end of distortion mindset in my head, and it was just a bit kind of nice and mid-range and overdrivey, but actually I think it should work for this. But as you can see, I haven't wired anything together yet. Things have been used individually. Some things have not been fired up yet because I've been too busy running barefaced to trying to make money and looking after small children to play with this yet, to my staff's amazement, because they don't have children and they just work here. They don't have to keep the ship steered and running out of hours. So yeah, some fun stuff I've got. I succumbed to getting one of these. I've kept on writing bits thinking, oh, would an octaver be useful on that? You know, put an octaver on it, and then I realise I'm always playing chords. I mean, not all the time, but there's a lot of moments when I've got a cool riff and I'll drop an extra note. I'll either let a note rumble through it, or I'll play a fifth or an octave, or I'll get into full blown, you know, I'll do the wider spaced dyads, or actual full blown 3-note or even 4-note chords sometimes. It does really escalate. And of course, if you do that, you can't use an octaver. And then I kept hunting through what octavers were out there, and I've used a fair few in the past, and I came to the conclusion that I don't like how a lot of octavers sound, because too much of them have a sound that is rather synthy and it's its own thing, and I was wanting more something that will just add more to the bass guitar. Hence, I've bought this Pog too. We shall see how well it works, because the upside with this is I can play chords without it getting confused. I can go up, I can go down, and because I've finally succumbed to adding a digital pedal to the board, though that's digital as well, actually, but kind of, you know, only the reverby side of it, it's programmable with 8 presets. So my plan is to add a loopy switchy bit there, and then have 3 different loops which are in series with each other, but I'll be able to have 1, 2 or 3 loops, you know, on or off in different combinations. And then I think probably have 1 loop, which is the first loop will probably be Pog into one of the Machinists. That's a distortion, which way around is it? Distortion fuzz. These are upside down to me, they're the right way around for you. And then you can bring the clean blend in or not. And then another loop, which I suspect will be full drive, well, bass drive I should say, into the envelope filter into another Machinist. I think that'll be the right order, but I shall experiment with that. I think if I put the envelope after here, then everything's going to get too squished, so the envelope won't envelope enough when I want it to. But then again, and also I can always have, if this pair is in front of this pair, then that will give me the fuzz before envelope, and that will give me the fuzz after envelope, so I can get the different attack time on it without having to move knobs on that. And then the other loop is my modulatey, filly sound, spacey, soundy, being a guitar, being a keyboard, and whatever. So I've got subspace for some dirt, which Hampstead have some of our bass cabs for demoing their gear. So they gave us one of these pedals, which is a rather nice and very versatile sort of overdrive all the way through to fuzz, which has got a clean blend. And then we've got the Earthquake Devices Grand Orbiter Phaser MXR Bass Chorus Deluxe, which is also a flanger when you press that button, which is mostly, I've got it more for flanging on bass, but I suspect I'll use the chorus when I'm doing the playing bass whilst pretending to be a guitar thing. And then tremolo, because tremolos are cool. It's going to be interesting because that hasn't got a tap tempo, so that's going to take some thinking if I'm using sort of really choppy tremolo about how I arrange things, because if it's on a choppy tempo without a tap, then I've got to come in before the drummer and let that set the tempo. So we'll see how that works. And then a reverb, which I realised with all this stuff I've been writing on acoustic bass guitar, so much of it is going to sound so dry without the reverb added. And I'd rather approach things in that I want to get the sound happening in the room. And then I've got this chunky power supply. I think it's a Pedal Power 2 from Voodoo Lab. As you can see, it's only got 8 outs. There's more than 8 pedals here, which shows how the project sort of has escalated. Oh, and I've got this Strobo Stomp, so I finally got myself a little tuner to go on the floor. So need to make true bypass switchy box. We've got an idea actually that Luke had here of putting, I think it was one of those, not a Raspberry Pi, one of those Arduino devices in there, so we could make it a momentary or latching switcher. But I think my brain might melt if I'm trying to do momentary switching on things. I mean, it could be quite cool to be able to drop in a fill and just bring in a different effects for that without having to latch on and off, because I'll never manage it if I have to latch for like half a bar. The Earthquake devices already have smart switches that will do the momentary thing. If you hold them down, they don't actually latch, so it's a momentary switch with a relay and a circuit board, that must do some sort of logic stuff. So I can still do those two on momentary, but obviously if they are within a loop, then the loop has to be activated. So anyway, here's where I'm at. I mean, this whole bass thing, the Bareface thing, it all happened because I like making music and I don't like the gear getting in the way of what I'm doing, and the gear I was using was getting in the way of what I'm doing, so I wanted bass cabs that didn't get in the way. And then the guitar cabs was like, well, I want a guitar cab that makes life easier for my guitarists. And I thought it'd be really cool to then, have a guitarist using the barefaced guitar gear in a band that I'm in, and now I seem to have ended up narrowing this project into possibly not involving any guitars or anything, and it just being bass, drums, and hopefully piles of vocals. I think it'd be quite fun to have layers of harmonies and things like that, but we shall see. It's going to be a studio thing. I have yet to assemble the personnel fully. I have to build that, get that wired together, and I have to start trying to learn the stuff I wrote ages ago, because I've got 30-something songs and about 8 sort of funky interludes to go within it, and it seems to cover quite a wide spectrum of styles. But I think my bass playing will sort of ties it together in an odd way, but we shall see. But as I was saying, I have many pedals here, which we can sort of demo and chat about. I don't know if any of you guys have any knowledge of them or experience with them. I will be very surprised if any of you have used every single one here. It's not the most esoteric collection. I mean, there's 3 MXR pedals here, 2 Earthquakers, 2 Barefaced, the Hampstead, 1 Electro Harmonix, who are a pretty cool legendary company. It's quite interesting reading about the history of them, how they've sort of come back from the dead repeatedly and seem to be having a great run for the last 20 or so years. And then my relatively vintage bass drive. I've got a Big Muff up there, but the Machinist does it better. It's a great old Softtech era Big Muff. But yeah, it'd be interesting demoing stuff. I think we probably need to get some sort of looping pedal here as well, just to make it easier to demo pedals and cabs and demonstrate things in the rooms. Because if we can get a good sound quality looper, then we can I can play something, or one of the guitarists here can play something, and then we can wander around the room moving mics, switching cabs, turning knobs on pedals and amps, and give you a better idea of what's happening without the variability of us playing or the complications of recording and reamping, because that's the key with making videos here. We aren't YouTubers. We're people who make cabs. There's an uprising there, bit of set dressing. There's a reformer down there, so 2 bass cabs behind me. I'm actually sitting on a prototype guitar cab as well, because that put me at the right height. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. You probably weren't expecting me to turn up and talk about pedals. Though I suppose you were if you saw the picture, because that'll show that. You're expecting more sort of talking about acoustics and physics and, you know, sound from the engineering point of view. But I've been playing bass longer than I've been studying engineering, though not by long. It's happened almost simultaneously. End of 6th form, started playing bass, and then went to university and got too carried away playing bass and not into the degree enough. But I got through it, and here we are. So thank you. If you want me to ramble more about pedals, if you want me to demo pedals, because that would be probably a lot more interesting than talking about them, then I'll do that. If not, I'll just get back to doing geeky stuff, whatever. Thank you. I've been Alex from Barefaced. I still have a pedal problem.